What's up, DIY queens? It's your design bestie, Cara Newhart, and this is Make Space.
Hello, and welcome back to Make Space. It's Cara. Today's a solo episode, and we're talking about something that I get asked a million times, a million percent of the time, literally all the time. It has to do with budget, but more broadly, limits, because I think this is a larger conversation than just money in many ways. And I like this topic because I think it's like something that once you get will like change your approach to your home entirely. So we're talking about kind of like limits, working within your limits and working with your limits when it comes to home decor, design, DIY, renovation projects. And this is a fun topic because I think on the surface, everyone's scared to talk about money or it's uncomfortable to talk about money, especially women. Also, I think money can feel like a restriction. Like when we say budget, you kind of think of like you're like limited, you're boxed in, like you can't spend more than X on this, and that can feel suffocating. Especially when you're working on a creative project, when you just kind of want to go wild and create a vision, a budget can be something that feels limiting. I don't think it is. And I think reframing this is going to change everything. I know it did for me because that's how I felt for a long time. Like the reason I started DIY in the first place was not because I wanted to build crazy things by myself and learn how to use a saw, which I was terrified to do. It was because I had very expensive taste and very dramatic visions for how I wanted my home to be and no money to get there, like no money to pay someone to do it for me. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to just figure out a way to do it myself. So it was very like scrappy and in response to the fact that I was limited by budget. So the first thing I think when we talk about limits, just to like frame what I mean, limits can be like your budget. You only have X amount to spend on a renovation project. It can be the limitations of an actual space. So nothing to do with money, but just like we only have 100 square feet in this bedroom to work with. It can also be a limitation on a smaller scale. Like we ripped out this wall to put this thing in, but there's actually this stud that has to stay. And so now we have to turn it into a pole or a pillar in the middle of the house. So there's so many limitations that arise where it's like things have to be this way and we have to work around it. And whether that's money, whether it's the actual space that's giving you these restrictions. And I feel like you see this all the time, all over like home renovation shows, HGTV. There's always like the limitation problem that arises like, oh no, here's this unexpected thing that we have to work around. And it's either a money problem or it's like a stud or it's a load bearing wall. And now we need this really expensive beam. They're just the reality of home renovation. And so I think figuring out an approach to deal with these in a way that's constructive and, in fact, leveraging them to make your process and your space better versus feeling like knocked down by them every time is a game changer. So, the first piece of advice that I want to give you is to respect the limit. And so, it's like a simple reframe of understanding that this is like not something that is bad. Like, just because it's something unexpected, it's not bad. And in fact, I think limits are a tool, not a restriction. Or if you want to rhyme, it's a tool, not a rule. It's not something that's saying, no, you can't, don't. It's something that just is like part of the creative process. So to reframe this, I have a couple analogies. The first one is like search terms. So let's say you're on Amazon and you want a pink chair and you type in pink chair. You are limiting the results to pink chairs. You don't want to see white chairs. You don't want to see green chairs. So that's kind of the way to shift to think about limits, because what it's actually doing is helping you get to your desired result more quickly and more directly versus sifting through all these endless possibilities. Like if you had an endless budget and your space had no limits, like you're basically creating what is the video game? Sims? I'm really terrible at video games, so I don't know what it is, but like where you could build a world without limits. Like the options would be endless, and that in fact is way harder than something where you have limits in place that you can work with, because it automatically gets rid of a lot of options, which makes it way easier for you to choose what's right for you. And so whether that's budget, you're limited to spending a certain amount, whether that's your space, that limit is actually a tool because it's filtering through endless possibilities to help you bring up just the ones that will work for you in the space you're in right now. It doesn't mean that later you can't do something different when you have more money or you have a different space or you've thought about it differently and your style has changed. It just means right now using this to find the best solution. The other analogy that I like to use, it's like a coloring sheet with lines on it where you have to color in the lines. Like it has a picture for you, so you don't have to freehand things, which if you are an everyday person designing your space and renovating and DIYing, lines are helpful. So it's the same thing as if you are not a professional artist. Like starting from scratch when you're not an interior designer with lots of training and lots of technical knowledge is really challenging. It's possible, but it's challenging. And so these limits that you have, once you can shift to viewing them as just parameters or helpful lines to color within, it makes the process more fun, first of all, because you don't feel boxed in. And also you can learn to use them to help you instead of feeling limited by them. So, it streamlines your decisions by really honing your focus on only the things that are going to work in your space. So I often have said that, and I said in the journal, that you don't need more money to create the space of your dreams or more space. You just need creativity. And while there are some situations when you definitely need more money, you definitely need a bigger house, for the most part, I think 80% of design dilemmas that you will run into, you can solve with more creativity. So thinking of these parameters is just a way to creativity thrives when it has limits, because creativity works best when there's a problem to solve. It's really hard to invent something out of thin air, out of nothing, but it's way easier when you have a problem to kind of think of a solution to overcome it. That's just how we function as humans. It's easier to have a point of reference or kind of piece together things you've seen before in a different way versus try to come up with something completely new. And that's why so much creative work is inspired on the work that's come before, especially design. Trends are cycling in and out again and again, just because it's easier to kind of repackage and reframe what we already know and what we've already done. So creativity needs these parameters to shine. Just like water, if you're going to drink water, it's easier to have a glass to hold it. Otherwise, the water's everywhere. So your budget is not a limit. It's just a framework, and it's just a guiding thing. It's guiding you so that you don't spend too much and, torpedo your financial goals or go into credit card debt. Your budget is a healthy parameter. So don't look at it as I don't have enough. Look at it as what can I do with what I have, and how can I get creative to make sure what I do have, this limit, this parameter, I can stretch as far as possible. So when you're approaching projects with this framework, I guess everyone's process is so different because it's dependent on your personality. It's dependent on the specific project, but just some things, as far as a list of things to run down in terms of creative problem solving, working within your limits, you can always subtract something. And that's in fact where I like to start first, is look at a space and find something that's not working. Because I think taking away what isn't working before we start to add things to solve the problem is more helpful. There's a whole thing called additive cognitive bias, which if you don't, if you haven't heard of this, the non-scientific explanation is essentially most of our go-to solution as people living in America, or maybe living other places in the world, but specifically it's a problem in America, is that when we have a problem, we like to add something to solve it. Like our go-to solution is to add something new. So we need something isn't working in our house. We go to Amazon and search for a basket or a hook or something new, some kind of new product. This is because of a long history of marketing and capitalism and people really good at marketing telling us, hey, you need this to solve this problem. You could have this to solve this problem. Like good advertising shows you a problem and then positions their product as a solution. And that's not to say that's bad. It's just that we need to acknowledge that that's our default thinking for most of us. Like most of us are going to want to add something new when we have a problem in our lives, and especially in our homes, and especially when we haven't really kind of created our own approach to renovating, to DIYing, to making over spaces. If you don't have a set system because you're not a designer, you don't have training, or you haven't just like sat down and thought about like how you would like to approach it, that's probably going to be your go-to solution, is to add something. So I like to start with subtracting. The best example tangibly of what this looks like is decluttering. So like you're going to make over a room. First you go through and you declutter and you get rid of the stuff that's not working, that's you don't need anymore, that you don't like. Or you could just pull everything out of the room and go through it later. But subtracting is what I like to use as the first step. My second phase is usually function. So I usually like to make a list of everything I'm going to actually do in the space, like pieces of my daily routine. So if it's a bathroom, like put on makeup, take a shower. If it's a bedroom, like we sleep in there most of the time, getting dressed, having a reading nook. So like actual tangible activities that I'm going to do in the room to give me a framework of the function that I need. And then I'm going to match those to design elements. So sleeping, you need a bed. Reading nook, like are you going to do that in the bed? Are you going to do that in its own separate corner? Like do you need a chair for reading? And this is just like a high level, quick speed through overview. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, in the journal, I do have a very specific process that walks you through exactly how to do this. But I just want to give you kind of the high level view so you can kind of shift the way you're thinking about this. But essentially, you think of the actual tangible things happening in your space. And then when you're designing different design elements, you have to pick things that support those functions. That way you're designing a space that functions well, and then you can make it pretty. So it's like the bare bones and the structure that you then get to make pretty. I also like to think of it as like a stick in the garden that a vine can like climb up and then make beautiful flowers. So there's like a structure in place first, and then you build off of it with all the fun stuff like patterns and colors and tile and all of that stuff. So we're subtracting, we're finding the function, then you can start to add. So then you can say like, what could I add to this space to make it better? So whether that's furniture, shelves, baskets, color, mirror, like there's, a million things you could add. But once you've laid the groundwork of like taking away and really getting intentional about what you're going to do in there, then the addition is easy because you're very clear on what you need. So you're not just like buying things randomly or doing like a patchwork situation, right? Where you're like, oh, well, I'll just get this hook and then maybe this basket. And now I'm at Target and I see this thing that might fix my whole mudroom that is a total wreck. So you're not just kind of like one-off grabbing things that you hopefully will make it better. It's like you're being more, strategic, I think. The other thing that helps with parameters is realizing that your home today is not permanent. Like no matter who you are, what you're doing, the house you have today is going to change over time as you change. So whether that's your style changes, whether it's you have kids and they grow up and then they have different needs and suddenly there's not toys all over the floor. Our houses evolve over time. And I know we've talked about this a lot on the podcast and gone into very depth about that, but this evolution means that your space today isn't going to be your space tomorrow, which is very freeing because the decision you make today doesn't have pressure of being forever. But it also means that you can break things up into smaller pieces to work with your limitations. So if you don't have a ton of money to spend, you can create a plan for the space and you can chunk it up. I hate that term. I don't know why I use that. You can split it up into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So phase 1 will replace the basics. Phase 2, we will add tile. Phase 3, we will add all this extra bonus, fun, beautiful stuff so that you have a goal and a plan for your home over time. And that's like another way to work within your limits. So it's like, it doesn't all have to happen right now. If your limit is time, if your limit is money, if your limit is the space you're in right now. So I think having those larger goals for your home and for your life, your lifestyle, really can help inform how your home changes over time and also give you freedom that if it doesn't all happen right now within your limit, it's not a failure and it's not like something to be sad about. It's something to look forward to. Like things will evolve and change and that's fun. Like otherwise, if you have it all figured out today, what are we doing here? You know, like that's very boring. You get to see what comes next. So yeah, I feel like I hope there's some good practical takeaways here that you just heard something that you were like, okay, I see this, I get this. I feel like this can be a really easily become like a philosophical conversation of like transcending your limits or limiting beliefs, but which is important too. Like that's definitely a side of it. But I think in terms of translating those ideas into practical step by step, like how does this work in my house? Like how can I approach limits in my spaces, whether it's budget or the actual space being too small or some unexpected problem coming up where I can't achieve what I wanted to achieve. So the answer is always pivoting. Like for the most part, you're going to have to make a plan B. And the beauty of a plan B is it can take the essence or the good parts of the plan A, rework them a little bit, and suddenly you have something that oftentimes is better than you would have expected. I'm trying to think of a specific project example to give you because there's so many times this has happened to me where it's like I plan a project, I start it, something goes wrong, whether it's really wrong or like just something little like a hiccup, then I have to rework, and in reworking I actually create something that's better than I initially thought. The only thing I can think of right now is my spice rack, which is like I ripped a hole in my drywall because I had this weird little space between my kitchen and my walk-in pantry, which was very awkward and angled. So I wanted to make an area for all the spices to go, like in cute little jars with like labels from Etsy. So I ripped out the drywall and I was going to plan to like have it in the wall, like a recessed spice rack. So I rip out the drywall, I find a stud, definitely can't move it because it's load bearing. So in order to do that, there'd have to be a hole. I mean, you could do it, but you'd need a official carpenter to come reframe it because it's literally holding up a giant house. So I was like, that's not worth it for a spice rack. You know, it's like one thing if we're knocking out a wall and it's going to be like the centerpiece of the house. It's another if it's like a little spice rack. So anyway, I pivot. I decide that instead of being recessed into the wall, it's going to be just kind of mounted on the wall, about 3 inches deep, kind of like a bookshelf, but for spices, very shallow. And then the plot twist that turned out to be amazing is because it had to come off of the wall, I needed something under it. Otherwise, it would just look like a weird hovering bookshelf. And it didn't quite make sense to do spices all the way to the floor because who's going to like bend down to get the spices? Anyway, so I ended up building this cute little, it looked like a piece of furniture with little furniture legs right under it. It was about 6 inches deep. It had a little like white oak countertop on the top. And underneath, I was able to put all my cookbooks. I had a little mortar and pestle. I had like a little plant, some bigger jars of like bigger spices like salt and pepper that were too big to fit on the normal spice rack. I will link a picture because as I'm describing this, I'm realizing it's so much easier if you can just look at it. So I will link a picture in the show notes. But essentially, this project turned out way better. Like the little spice rack had so much character, it perfectly fit the space. Because I had the little built-in piece of furniture on the bottom with like a tiny countertop, I was able to like pull down a spice and measure it out and then put it back and not have to carry like a ton of things back and forth. There was also like a little bar that I hung all of like my measuring spoons off of. So it just turned out so cute, and it's something that like I literally could not have come up with had there not been that limit of the stud being in place, because I never would have thought to do it. Like inventing a spice rack out of thin air, I never would have been like, oh, there should be a 6-inch little bookshelf built-in furniture thing on the bottom for cookbooks. Like it just didn't occur to me. And so that's like a weird specific example, but honestly, I think this happens with every single project I do to some extent. Sometimes it's like you come up with something that literally shapes the whole project and like makes it amazing. Other times it's just a tiny tweak that really improves the function or just like looks cute. But this is my favorite part about the process. And honestly, it's the reason that I don't sit down and make a whole crazy detailed plan before I do a project. I make a plan in the sense that I'm like covering all the big important things. Like I have an estimated budget and I have like a very rough idea and I do take measurements, but I know full well that no matter what I do, when I get in there, something is going to change. And it's always exciting. Like, what is going to be different? What am I going to come up with? And hitting that limit or that roadblock or that problem is just an opportunity to make it better. And it always turns out better because it always creates a scenario, a problem to solve, and then I can get more creative. And creativity functions best when it's solving problems. So yeah, I think limits, when you're just like dreaming of projects and you're looking at social media and you're looking at projects other people have done, it can be really easy to feel those limits really harshly. Like, oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough space. I don't have enough whatever. But if you can learn to creatively work with them, using them as a tool, using them as a parameter, it can actually do so much to make your projects better, make your space better, make things function better. And it's just fun. Like it's kind of fun, a fun part of the creative process to problem solve, which I never would have said like 2 years ago. If you would have asked me like, hey, can something going wrong with your project be fun? I would have been like, no, it's horrible. I'm having a horrible time. But I think when you embrace it as part of the process, you learn to work with it, you learn to expect it, and you learn that it's actually always a catalyst for magic in making things better. I always say the magic is in the messy middle. It literally is. Like that's when you come up with your best ideas. At least I do. When I've ripped everything apart, it's a mess and it's like, ooh, you know what we should do? This. So yeah, this is just your sign to reframe how you're thinking about limits. Do not let them hold you back. Use them as a tool and a parameter for your creativity. And yeah, short and sweet, but let me know if you have questions. I would love to hear from you, whether you have an experience like this where you've hit a roadblock and something's turned out amazing, whether you are not experiencing this yet and you want maybe specific tips on a project or a limit you're encountering right now. You should come over on Instagram at MakeSpacePod and send me a DM and we can talk about it because I would love to connect. I think this is such a fun topic and such a game changer once you can make this shift. And it is a shift that it's not like you get to choose. You're not like, I'm going to just embrace my limits. Like, it's something that over time, with experience, you're going to, yeah, kind of see come to light. But just knowing it's possible and knowing that, yeah, incorporating it into your process will make your spaces amazing and will make the whole thing more fun and will help you create a home sustainably where you're not always reaching for more or feeling like you don't have enough. So, yeah, that's the scoop on this week. Get out there, crush some projects. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. And if you've got more episodes to catch up on, binge on. Don't let me stop you. But if you've got a second, you should come say hi on Insta at MakeSpacePod. And if you're an overachiever, you can also leave a review and I'll love you forever. If you're new here, hit that follow button to officially become a DIY queen and join all the amazing humans tuning in every week.